Oh yeah, time to budget! I think I speak for everybody when I say subscription services are far from exciting these days. Hell, I'd go as far to say I'd rather be happy than have a Peacock account. I have a Peacock account. But I think these services get out of hand when you're juggling multiple. If you hone in on one in particular that's delivering the entertainment you want, you can get a lot of value out of it. So let's take a look at these, starting with Xbox Game Pass. And I already know this is a great deal because we can just keep buying Pop-Tarts and get a free week of this thing. You know what that means? We're crossing gluttony off the list! Xbox Game Pass has a few different options here, the cheapest being the core membership. For 10 bones a month, you get online multiplayer and a bit over 30 games you can download and play, which does change from time to time. This isn't a permanent list by any means, but it's obvious Microsoft intends it to always hit the quality standard of pretty good. A great variety here with indie games, simulation games, first-person shooters, online multiplayer titles, local multiplayer titles, RPGs, platformers, classic games, modern hits, the works! For only $10 a month, this is great! As a scam, $100 a year for access to a handful of titles. Access to. They aren't playable forever, and the lineup gets shaken up a few times a year. And with many of these games being priced at, oh man, 3 numbers, it really doesn't feel worth it. That is until you add up the value of all the games included, and it turns out this is actually hundreds of dollars in value. So yeah, it really does feel worth it. Until you realize it really doesn't feel worth it. So I went on price charting websites and found the cheapest going rates of any games available via physical methods, and if they're digital only, the MSRP on the Xbox store. And yeah, even with many of these titles going for incredibly low prices, the sum of owning all of this is well over $400. But that's the thing. Owning all of this is well over $400. Keep in mind, you don't own anything with these services, and by owning the physical stuff, you can resell that. And the concept of all this being valued at over $400 makes me question, you really gonna play all this? Yeah, it's $100 a year for 30 plus games, worth well over that, but are they really worth anything if you're not even gonna boot them up? I find that many of these subscription services are more about convenience than value. Like, just the concept that I could play any of these games at a moment's notice is enough for me. And yes, Game Pass Core is how you get online multiplayer. So these games are more so a bonus rather than the reason you buy into the service. But I'm just looking at this from the perspective of somebody who wants to get games on the cheap. But with Game Pass Core having such a small selection of titles, I'd recommend either just picking up the ones that interest you rather than paying an ongoing fee, or flat out biting the bullet on Game Pass Ultimate. Now this is more like it. Access to hundreds of games, some of which are brand new $70 releases, day and date on Game Pass. Well, that seems like I paid $200 a year to play $70 games before they cost $15 that very year. Here's some financial advice! Alright, so Game Pass does have a ton of value, but a lot of it depends on how varied your tastes are. Like maybe one day you're feeling Madden 22, and then the next Madden 23. Oh, I know what I'm doing tomorrow. It all comes back to my original point of, if you're not gonna play a good chunk of these, why even bother? Make a checklist of all games available via Game Pass to see how many you're actually going to play, and if it's a decent amount, sure. Hell, if you can play through the games you want to play through in 2 weeks, it'll only cost you $1. And if this is your only method of playing games, you don't want to buy anything else, just Game Pass, $200 a year isn't horrible for what can amount to hundreds of hours of entertainment. But keep in mind, many of these titles are frankly worthless. Used game stores are practically giving them away, so why play them under a monthly subscription fee if that's 17 times more expensive than just a one and done purchase? Well, because you get all these other games, and it's so convenient. Here, as a Game Pass subscriber, I'm gonna play Gotham Knights. This game stinks. Game Pass is cool, but I wouldn't rely on it year-round for all things gaming, considering how as I browse the lineup, 80% of it looks exactly the same as 5 years ago. And as frequently as new games get announced to be joining Game Pass, they leave just as fast. But that's not to say this isn't a good service to take advantage of. I'd say if a new game releases into it that you know you'll play within that month, Just subscribing for those 30 days is an effective way to play select modern titles on the cheap. Just remember to cancel when you're done.
Hey Scott, Future Scott here. You forgot to cancel Game Pass.
Oh my god, is everything okay?
Better than okay. It's not bad. Thanks to Game Pass, I'm flat broke, which means I can't buy into Ubisoft Plus.
I think it goes without saying, but any publisher-specific subscription service, yeah, that's not the smartest move when you're so broke you have to eat the inedible. $18 a month for Ubisoft Plus? That's more expensive than Game Pass. Who cares about Ubisoft exclusively enough to subscribe to this? Same goes for EA Play, which is already included in an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate membership. And like, what are you getting this by itself for? FIFA 17? Now on the PlayStation side of things, there's PlayStation Plus, which is practically the same as Game Pass. I mean, you don't get as many day one AAA releases as that, but is that really a benefit of Game Pass? I think about it this way, if you have Game Pass, you could play these games without having to buy them outright. Why would I want to play them to begin with? PlayStation Plus's game catalog has the benefit of PlayStation exclusives being a part of it, and a lot of the same kind of stuff you see in Game Pass, all at a comparable price point, so it depends on which lineup or console you prefer. But my advice remains. Don't take my advice. Subscription services can be used to your benefit if you're on a budget, even in other ways outside of just canceling after a month. You can find all kinds of deals out there from different stores where these memberships are cheaper. My problem comes into play when we consider where all this money is going. Turns out, it's going to gun. This is what I'm talking about when I say these services are about convenience, not value. I spend $10 a month and I get permission to play Gotham Knights. Well, gee. Thank God I didn't waste money on this, I say as I'm spending $200 a year. Or how about I just spend $5 more on a one and done purchase and then I can do whatever the hell I want with this thing. Hell, maybe even sell it for more than I bought it for. You never know, it could happen. My point is, if you're looking to play on the cheap, take advantage of these services when it makes sense to. They offer a ton, but don't depend on them, because if you're not careful, you forget you're subscribed or there's nothing that's interesting to you on them, it is genuinely the equivalent to flushing your money down the toilet. Hey, I may have bought Gotham Knights, but at least I can flush the money down myself.